Some more work with career plan, electronic signature, goals, objectives, just a little bit all over the place. We do some, we put some filler in there on the info bubble management. We also have some technical user management updates in the back end, and we have that continuing through the next one. We are in active discovery with the state and some of you folks on eligibility certification, pre-screen piece. There was a lot done on that. We had some in-person meetings a couple weeks ago. Welcome page. We're working on that, and we're going to get some assistance from local folks on the welcome page, and how that for employers and training. We're going to ask for that. Assessment, employment credentials, education outcomes, discovery, measured skill, business logic. So that's all the work that's going along all over the board, it looks like, and we do have that segregated out to different developers. So that's why we're all over the board. We don't want them stepping on each other. And that's what we're into. We'll start our next 38 sprint next. We'll start that tomorrow. So, okay. I have a really small piece here that I'm going to put before Olivia's real quick because it's only about 5 minutes, and I'll show you that, and then I'll turn it all over to back to Olivia. She's kind enough to let me get mine in here. Okay. Let me go to here. All right, can you all see this browser window with the entity management? Can anybody see that? Does that look okay, Olivia or Taylor or whoever?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so this is just our standard entity management. You can get to where I'm going to go several different ways, of course, but we're going to talk about training program, training plan, program, edit, view, and all that kind of stuff. We got a bunch of cool stuff going on there, and we should have that in a couple weeks. We're hoping a couple weeks we'll have that back in your hands for UAT. And I think that'll be at the end of this next sprint. So I'm looking forward to that to get some feedback on this. But I'm going to go into my favorite that I use all the time. Hopefully we're not deploying. That would be terrible. I didn't tell the guys that we, that could be a bad deal. Okay, we're good. Okay. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to go to training plans. I'm going to go into this one. So this is the training plan view. And so right down here in this is changed too. This is upgraded so it shows you when you get in there. Before it didn't show you where you were, but now it shows you before you get in there what the status is, which is really cool. And it also gives us, if we go here, it also gives us at the bottom of each page what's left or what's wrong with the page with a little warning there. So this basic page at this point, we can't submit it because it doesn't have any ONET codes. Okay, but I took them all off because I wanted to show you this. So if I go out, whoops, hit the wrong one. Why did I not see? Oh, I'm not in edit mode. I don't even know how this works. Okay, there we go. So if I go in here, and remember, we have these. So if I selected these here as my 3, if that was my 3, you could see the demand occupation information and all that. If we save that, we brought that all the way out to here. So from that point on, we can just glance in here. And I think someone in this group thought that would be a good idea, and we latched onto that and did that. So that is now available. So when when a reviewer looks at this and just glances at it, they'll be able to see exactly. I was going to show you one more. Maybe I will. There we go. You'll be able to see exactly what they look like. I guess that's not a big deal to everybody, but anyway, we got that done, and I wanted to demonstrate that. I also want to kind of show you that we now have the status here. So see, I have no missing some kind of information there. Um, so now this is going to be in your hands, hopefully in 2 weeks. So you can go through this whole training program stuff again if you haven't seen it yet for the first time, then also. So any questions about what I showed you or any other comments?
I have one question.
Yes.
So on this page, so I love this. But when it comes down to like when you see that low priority, um, is there a way to like put an info bubble there for career planners to know like what they need to do for that? Because I think sometimes the career planners look at it and go, it's low priority, but it's still approved. It's whether it's a state priority or whatnot, we can approve it. But that's not necessarily the case.
Well, the career planner is not going to be the one approving this training plan. Remember that, right?
Oh yeah, this is for the provider to put it in.
This is to get this training plan defined and through the approval process. So whenever the reviewer, ETPL coordinator reviews this and says, well, that's okay. If like say if that was the only one, if they decide it's okay or they go through the process of saying it's okay, then I don't think your career planner
Yeah.
has to do anything, right? They would, if it was approved on the ETPL, they could use it, right? The training
Right.
program.
Right.
Yeah.
So would when the provider then picks this ONET,
Yes.
do they have to provide additional, they would have already provided additional documentation to show that it's an in-demand occupation in this area?
In that area, I
Right.
I would think yeah, it'll be more of a policy and procedure thing. And again, I think we were told that DCEO, based on DOL recent years, kind of monitorings, guidelines, recommendations, that they want DCO to have a little bit more of oversight over final approval on the ETPL. So that's a good question. I mean,
yes,
yeah, we might have to defer that to like Laura or
you
Paula or
you
Mark, because they might yeah, they when you submit the program, they might say, hey, have you made sure that this is an occupation that's still viable in your area? So
Right.
it's a good question, but probably when we would have to defer to the policy people.
correct. So you remember, okay, now you're going to have when this comes out anyway, you're going to have a two-step verification process, right? Approval process. One is going to be first at the LWIA. And if you see that at the LWIA, the coordinator at the LWIA, you're going to say, okay, there's going to be a reason you're going to let that go on and recommend it for approval, right? In that
Mhm.
workflow process. And that would be that you've probably done some due diligence on that if it's only, local priority. Okay. And then it gets to DCO coordinator and they'll look at it and you might have a discussion back and forth. You may put notes over here on why. You may put some notes in here on why that's a local demand. Um, and then you could potentially have some discussion with the reviewer at the local. We'd have some discussion with the reviewer from DCO if you guys decide, yeah, we should go ahead and let that go and let that in. Okay. So
Perfect.
there's going to be a process there. I haven't heard about any specific documentation that's going to be uploaded, but I do suggest that we would, you would want to put notes in there or some background of why you believe that should go on and get approved.
Thank you.
Good point. All right. Thank you very much. I will stop and let Olivia take the stage. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I want to pick back up with where we left off the previous week. We walked through our, I'm scrolling out here. So we walked through our intake process with you all. We looked through the new self-service path that we created and walked through how a customer may come through and complete that pre-screening. This process is supported both through a self-service process as well as a space in IWDS 2.0 where a career planner can choose to send that to a customer they're engaging or do that with a customer. After a customer completes the pre-screening that they walk through, regardless of the path they choose to go through, they, if they meet the minimum qualifications to move forward, they get a page that will, we're still working on the language of that page, and we're being very mindful about how we word it. We don't want to say anybody's eligible. We want to just encourage them to move forward in the process, that things are looking good. We want them to move forward. Right here, we just have potentially eligible as a flag for us, that they may be potentially eligible. We'll also have a page if the customer does not seem like, based on the information we got from pre-screening, does not seem like they're a good fit. We'll never tell them they're not eligible. We will encourage them, though, to connect with a local office so that they can have that ability to have real contact with a real person to make that determination. In the event they didn't understand the question or they weren't taking it seriously and answering things correctly. So we will have these recommendation pages set up throughout the pre-screening process. And I just want you all to know we're still working on that language, but we are being very mindful of the way that we word things. If they do trigger as potentially eligible, they'll get a message that will let them know like that they can move forward. And that will also provide them with an orientation video. So we are have folks working on what that's going to look like, looking at content that is out there. I know several of you all have your own orientation videos you've put together and processes. So we are reviewing those and working through that, and we'll bring that to you all when we have a better idea of what that's going to look like. We also want to provide them with a packet of information, something like getting organized, so that they know, based on the paths we've identified they may be eligible for, we can give them information on potential documentation they're going to need to get together to upload during the application and certification process. We also want to provide them information on how they can get some of that documentation if they happen to not have it, or they're missing it. So they'll get a link to a packet of information that would also be available to help them get ready for their next steps. And then we'll give them information on how they would move forward with completing the application. They're going to have two paths. They're going to have the ability to move forward on their own. So if they're coming the self-service route, or if a career planner sent them a URL to do the pre-screening as part of that final recommendation page, if they've triggered as potentially eligible, they'll get a link to be able to move forward with that application online. They will also have the option to connect with their local office. So we talked last week, we're going to have a feature in the system that consistently helps them try to connect with a local office if they want to move out of online and into in-person support. As they move further into the process, we're learning more about them and can help with those kinds of recommendations. So we know for some areas we might know like, oh, they flagged as youth because they've made it through the pre-screening. So we might be able to recommend more specific offices that help serve youth to that customer at that point, using entity management and being able to look at the relationship set up with the funding sources. Go ahead, Lisa.
I have a question. It's checking all eligibility essentially. What about the fourth priority? Because basically everybody's eligible if they meet the three beginning, authorized to work in the US, right? Their age at being 18, and if they're a male, selective service. So is everyone going to still show that they're eligible in this situation?
Yeah, so if they meet minimum eligibility of what you said, they would also be able to see if they were youth to use specific questions. And if they were not, if they were and the dislocated worker age, they'd be able to see those questions, see if they're also eligible for that. And they would trigger as potentially eligible if they just meant the minimum adult. They would still have to do the full application, which would help determine priority as well. So we do have the priority flow. So we're making sure we're looking to determine the various priority levels.
Right. So, but my question just is the language that's back to the customer, because what if, priority, there's, significant amount of individuals that are within the first through third priorities that are going through the program or coming into the system, and you have this individual that's just the fourth priority. Will there be language? I'm just trying to make sure that the customers have the correct expectations from the beginning, just to minimize customer complaints. If they're like, wait a minute, I am eligible, but I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to.
So if they get through the application and we determine they don't hit any of the first, second, third level, but they could potentially be eligible under the fourth level determined by locals, we might want on that application page something then about look like you're a good fit, meet with your career planner. We do serve customers on a priority basis.
Yeah, something
some
along
language
those
like
lines.
that.
Yeah,
definitely customer centered. We will include all that. But yeah, I can flag that for something that we wouldn't know it at pre-screening, but when we get further down, oh, wrong Miro. When we get further down here after they get through the application, we'll have an idea of priority, and that could be something we include here to set expectations.
Yeah, that was mainly my thing, was to set the expectations to the customer, because not saying that we wouldn't serve them, because we do. We serve, those that are in need, that may be in the fourth priority. I just want to make sure that that they have that expectation up front, so that it's not, wait, I'm eligible. Where's my voucher? Where's my services? And might not necessarily be the right fit. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
No, I think that's perfect to flag. And I'm just noting you there because if we have questions as we get into defining that text, I want to know who to circle back with. Any other questions? My pause right here. Okay.
One.
Good.
So at this point, far as the verbiage goes, when the verbiage goes out is, about, you may potentially be eligible, whatever. It's not going to necessarily say for the adult program or the dislocated worker program or something like that, right? Or the youth program. I'm just trying to figure out, because like in our office, anybody that's 18 years old and older, or 18 to 24, as long as they're not officially registered for or in training, we refer them over to our youth side of the program. And then if they don't qualify for that, we put them over to the adult side of the program. So will this right here kind of, or at some point after this or during this, we're going to be able to filter them in a sense to the right program, or how does that work?
Yeah, on the back end, we're going to know. We talked a little bit the other day about removing, we're going to look at this verbiage on these pages, and we want to remove references to programs because the customer doesn't know. Yeah. We know, and we'll know that on the back end, and we'll be able to show it in IWDS. And when a career planner is doing the, so when a career planner, let me show you guys. And we've just started hooking up some of the framework for this in the system. So it's not ready for UAT, but I have enough that I can make it work to show you. When a career planner walks through, and these questions too, just because you guys are seeing it, they are based on what they answer, we know what to ask them next. So it's very intuitive and trying to minimize the amount of questions we answer. If they were a male, they're going to see that selective service question. But once they get what they need, they move forward, and then they get recommendation pages. I'm completing this as a career planner. And when a career planner gets the, like you might be eligible for, again, we want to remove the verbiage to programs to the customer. We've talked about that because they don't know. We also are wanting to move away from using a lot of WIOA because they also don't know that. But a career planner would have an additional section on these guidance pages where it's going to show the career planner what the system is recommending potentially eligible for here and give them the flexibility. The best example we have is somebody might not have flagged as youth, but you might know that you're wanting to put them in under your 5% rule or your local additional help policy, and a career planner could choose to move forward with them doing so. And if the youth did this, they would have got something that said, again, we're not going to tell them they're not eligible, but said, hey, you should connect with your local office to move forward in this process. And the career planner would then be able to review the results and make that determination of if they did want them to move forward with a youth, if they were, you know, under age of 18 and couldn't have moved forward with an adult.
Thank you.
So my long answer to your question to summarize for everybody is we do not really want to put the program type in front of the customer, but that is something we will make available on the IWDS side for the career planners and LES staff to be aware of what we're flagging. Any other questions before we keep moving? Yeah, so as we start getting other programs available, we're going to start building out the other applications. Those will be a part of this process as well. And then eventually we're going to expand the system to be able to house non-WIOA programs. So we'll have applications in here for you to be able to facilitate that work, you know, later down the road. Our first priority is getting Title I stood up, and that will include the 1Ns and 1Es. And then we'll start incorporating in some of the other non-WIOA programs. So at this point, the customer can either choose to meet with a career planner to do the application using the Find My Local Office and making an appointment, or they can choose to click on the link and move forward with completing the application on their own. So if they choose to move forward with completing the application on their own, they are going to come into the application pages where they will answer more detailed information based on the tracks they've triggered. We're also going to provide them a way to upload documentation whenever they answer a question that triggers eligibility or priority of service. So you'll see here that we have, like, if in this situation, we said, what is your living situation? If they were to say they needed a permanent place to live, it would flag as homeless. And this is actually a bad example. We did decide that there are some questions, some documentation options that we would not ask a customer for. That would be something a career planner always gathers. Because either the documentation is a more complex piece of documentation or self-attestation is typically used. So I think our best example of like a documentation we might collect is like for like their date of birth or some of our other items that are pretty easy for them to just have some documentation. They can take a picture of their driver's license on their phone and then upload it into the application right there to streamline the process for the career planners. So some of that documentation is already in the system when the customer comes in for eligibility certification. Now, if the customer does not have it, we're not going to stop them. They're not required to upload documentation, but we do, where it makes sense, want to give them the option to upload documentation along the way to help streamline that process when possible. The application will contain sections where they're confirming information we already captured through the customer profile or pre-screening, and then have some additional questions that they need to answer. It will work like we saw, like I just kind of showed you on the pre-screening, where you answer a question and based on that answer, we determine what question you see next. This helps us make sure we're asking the right questions and minimizing the number of questions we have to ask you. So if we get what we need, we're not going to ask for any more information to be put in and let them go on to the next page. We have quite a few pages here. We have a few mock-ups here, but the pages are, we'll collect customer information, additional contact information, veteran information, some private information, education, household employment. This is our dislocated worker page, and then family and household information. A couple sessions back, we actually went through all the questions, and there is a link of the Excel on our web page for our local transition work. I will add a new link to today's session recording. We have made some minor tweaks to the questions that we laid out. One of our big things is we have made sure that we've written this application so that it is customer-centered, asset-based, and in a 5th and 6th grade reading level. So some of those questions, we did change the wording to make sure it was meeting those criteria, so that it is easy for all of our users to use, and is written in an asset-based language. So it is very customer-centered. We talked about if the customer, the self-attestation form could be embedded and electronically signed. We talked with the monitoring team about that. There are some specific things that have to happen with that self-attestation. It has to be generated by the customer. So we couldn't create a system-generated thing that they signed that said they were self-attesting to something. We do want to create like a self-attestation template that could be used, like printed out, but it does have to be written by the customer and signed by the customer. The career planner can help them like come up with the writing, but the customer has to write it. One of the things that we had talked about was the self-attestation can include an array of items. So if they're self-attesting to multiple things, one attestation form can be used to capture all of that and then upload it in the various areas, versus the customer feeling like they have to write something like 5 individual ones if they were going to self-attest to 5 things or 3 things. So we have the self-attestation as something that will happen when they need to self-attest to something. They will do that during eligibility certification with the guidance of a career planner. But we may look at embedding like a universal self-attestation template that they can print out that has like a big text space where they can write in and sign what it is they're self-attesting to. Any questions or comments on that from anybody else? Okay. So after they get through the application, then they will get a page that lets them know that their next step is to meet with a career planner. So we're talking again about the language of these pages. Are we going to have 2 different pages? Like if they complete the application and it doesn't look like they're going to be a good fit, we may have a little bit of different text that they see, versus if they do complete the application and it looks like they're meeting everything. And either way, we're not saying eligible or not eligible, and we will always recommend that they meet with their local office for the next steps. Again, we'll re-provide that packet of information. So we'll be able to say, like, for any documentation you haven't already uploaded, you're gonna be asked for this kind of stuff. Make sure to bring it to your appointment. Don't have it, don't worry, you know, we can help you get that, or that might be an appropriate place for a self-attestation. And then also continue to give them information on like how they can get some of that documentation if they don't have it. And then we want to provide them with some activities they can do ahead of meeting with their career planner. So one of the questions we ask them on the pre-screening is, you know, do you have a career field in mind? If they said they're, you know, looking for a job or interested in training or anything, we ask the question of, do you have a career field in mind? If they said yes, they have an occupation in mind, we're going to have them input those. But if they select another option of they're not really sure, they're needing help, there's a couple different options, we're going to recommend that ahead of their meeting, to streamline their experience, we'll use different words, they can complete the skills and interests survey, so that they can have like a better idea of that when they come in to meet with the career planner. Additionally, we're going to want to recommend that they can also complete a skills inventory and work history assessment. So we're working on creating that so that we can gather that information outside of having to do that later in assessments. They may choose not to do these things that might still need to be done later, but we flag those as two things we could potentially try to do while they're waiting to have that appointment to do their eligibility certification, to get them a little ahead in the process. And then that email will also tell them the next steps to get that appointment scheduled. We're still kind of working that part out. We talked a little bit about that last week too, of the preference of, do we have them call or do we set with them, and trying to have a dashboard where we can set appointments with them and highlight and elevate applications that are outstanding that need more action, that have been completed for longer than those that may have just been completed like that day. So this will come into play with that. And then after they get that page, they'll do whatever activities they are interested in doing on their own that we recommend, get their documentation put together, and then be able to come into the appointment. Ahead of the appointment, so when a career planner has an appointment scheduled with, this is Maria, so Maria's scheduled to come in, we want to create a space. Let me open this up. In the customer's profile, where a career planner can easily see where they're at in the eligibility certification process. So we want to create some kind of like status bar so we can see where they're at and what's happening. This is all just, we have not dug into this yet. This is a concept we need to talk through with state and locals. We're going to have more discovery on this piece soon. But we do know that we want a space for an application summary review. So where, similar to what we do in training providers, when something's submitted, we can easily come in and review that information to make sure we have everything completed prior to being able to do any kind of certification. So a career planner ahead of Maria's appointment would be able to come in and see what Maria has left. Did Maria answer all the questions? Did she get documents uploaded? And we will frame this up so you can easily see, like, these pages still have action that are needed before the whole application and documentation process is complete and a certification can happen. So a career planner can review the results, and we have a question for you guys on the UI of this. In this example, we have, we're on the Getting to Know You Better page, and you can see at a high level what, like, these were the options, and here is what Maria selected. And we can even make that stand out a little bit more, like bolden that up, so it's a little clear to see that that was their answer. But you also have the option here to kind of see what everything was. So as you know ahead of time, okay, here's what we got to do. Maria comes in, you can you can go through this with her and collect all the documentation and answer all the missing questions in the red X items. In this option, you have the ability to see the question and all the answer options here. And when you click edit, it's going to throw it back into edit mode. So if, as you're talking to Maria, you realize you need to make a change, you can easily put it back into edit mode, make that change on the application, and then save it and move back to your review mode. Additionally, throughout these spaces, you will be able to see where documentation is needed. So we'll highlight, hey, based on answers on this page, we need documentation for this item and upload it. If Maria had already uploaded documentation, instead of asking you to upload it like we do here, we would show that it was uploaded. You have the ability to preview it or download it, and then verify that that is the correct document and type that was set. If it wasn't, say Maria took a picture of her social security card or driver's license, I'm sorry, or I guess in this situation, birth certificate, and went to upload it, but accidentally picked like on a picture of her dog or something and uploaded that. As you're previewing it, you would say, oh, that's the wrong thing. This is not a birth certificate. You can remove it and then add that correct documentation. And when a career planner is adding it, it's going to auto verify that they have added the right one in this right source document like we do down here. We also have the ability to add existing document. So once a document is associated to the customer, you can reuse that throughout the system instead of having to re-upload the same document in multiple places. It will live as one document tagged to multiple things, so that you don't have like 3 copies of the birth certificate in the file. That is one view here of having everything kind of show for you in a view mode with the ability to quickly edit. The other option is, instead of showing you all of the question and answer, so here we had, how can we help you? And they select their focus. Here we have selected focus and it just says training for a new career. This is more focused on exactly what the customer picked versus allowing you to kind of see the array of things and the question. You can still go into an edit mode and change it, but staff would need to be more familiar. You lose the context of what else is available as you're having those conversations. But it is real, it's more elevating exactly what the customer has. And before I have you guys kind of talk a little bit on what you think, I would like to show you just some in practice examples of how we do this. So whenever we create a customer profile, we have that form we fill out here. Let me get to it real quick. We have the form we fill out to create the customer profile. And then when we have that done, we can go in and view a profile. And you can see here, we're only viewing what is applicable for this customer. For fields here that have like drop downs, we're not seeing the drop down options. We're just seeing exactly what is applicable. We still have the ability to edit. We also do have the other view. So whenever we're reviewing a training, here's the other view. So this is the very similarly the form, and it is showing me everything that's available, but it's grayed out, and I can put it into an edit mode and then make changes as necessary. So those are kind of the 2 different ways that we can structure the engagement between like a review to easily get it into an edit. We would love to hear from you from like in the field and practice, which way you feel would be more streamlined for you to be able to review an application results. to move the customer through, collect the documentation, make sure everything is correct to get them to a point where they can be certified. Feel free to type in the chat or come off mute. And if you have any questions or need more clarification on the two options, one is more of a full application view, the other is more condensed to just the results of that customer in a review. Yes, so I'm just showing an example of the function. This is a training program, provide a review, but it is in a specific format. This is how we could do the review of the application as well. Obviously, it would be completely different question set. It'd be the customer's application, but you would be able to see everything. It would be in a view, so you can't accidentally change things as you're reviewing it. But when needed, you can put it back into an edit mode and make changes. And then an easy way to see like, okay, all these pages are good, but before I can certify, like I'm still missing things where there was a red X. Now this one's all good. So the red X's would flag anywhere we're missing answers or have missing documentation that is needed before certification. So this is kind of the full application view versus a view where it's more condensed only to what the customer answered and not really showing us the fuller view of what was potentially fully available in the application. And again, just to pull up that mock-up, it would be focused towards like the customer application here. I just wanted to give you an example of in the system. I'm getting a lot of the full view, the full application view. I'd like to hear from a few more people. So this is like a decision point. We wanted to definitely have the locals drive the direction of this. So if all the folks on the call can go ahead and let me know what is your preferred view, or if you have any other recommendations or questions about this, definitely want to collect them here. If we like the view of being able to, I only updated this one page to be the full application view, but our intent is that you would walk through after you did the first question, you'd walk through to the personal background, you get that full view here. I don't have that mocked up yet, but you would have our full view, be able to collect any missing questions and upload data and continue to walk through all the pages to do that. And then I did want to note, I'll pause right there before I go on to the next thing. So full view allowing us to walk through all those pages. I have 3 people in the chat. I'd like to get a few more folks voting in on this to make sure full view is the direction we want to go. Yeah, the alternative to full view is more, we're only seeing exactly what it was the customer had selected. So I had a couple pages kind of like that where you could see these versus the fuller question set that was answered.
Thank you. I think I'm inclined to prefer the full. Better to have more than enough information and then not enough, or not enough, but then risk missing something. So I like I think I'm inclined to vote full view with everybody else. I don't want to be. I would never be a dissenter, but just for devil's advocate here, like what would be the advantage of the the preview view, like you're talking? Is it just that it's less on the screen and it kind of it cuts right away to the chase, so to speak, like it cuts right away to see what the customer's already filled? Because if you go to full view, you're still going to be able to see what the
Oh, yeah.
customer has inputted, right?
Yeah, and we can elevate these. So they're all kind of like grayed out because it's like a read view, but we can like make these a darker shade or bold them so it catches the eye to the career planner too, that this is what was chosen and stands out a little more against, but still be like a read view. Always the ability to edit, but when we're reviewing, we like to have it more in a view mode. So we don't accidentally click or change anything as we're going through this, and we can be more intentional about making those changes.
Got it.
Perfect. So I have some more stuff to go through with you all. So one of the other things that we're wanting to do, again, we'll go with the full view. This is kind of in the more targeted view, is triggering things like the family income calculator only when needed. So if a individual already flags as low income, we are not going to recommend that. We're going to have something like on the view, it would be the full view, and at the bottom it would have family income calculator not needed, low income met. So that we don't have folks maybe who aren't super familiar with the process see this on the application as a career planner and think it needs to be done. We already know they're low income. There is no need to do a family income calculation. Now, whenever a customer does not meet the low income, we and they for youth, if they have met eligibility another way and they're not needing, we're not looking to say low income is the last thing required to meet eligibility, without this they don't, we would still not require they do it. But if we flag that low income is needed in order to meet youth eligibility, or for adult, if they don't have any other way that they're hitting priority, that this might be a way that they could hit that, we will provide, we'll have the full view, and at the bottom we'll have family income calculator recommendation that the customer did not meet low income. This is what they have to meet in order to be low income through the family income calculator. So we want to give some guidance. So if you talk to a person and immediately know they're over that calculation, again, there's no reason to do the family income calculator. But if they could potentially, or based on the conversation, they would be low income based on that, then we would recommend that that happens and give a space for folks to do that family income calculator. These are all going to be like editable fields that you type in and can make that calculation and determine if they're low income that way. We do want the system to be more mindful about this and not just require, we had heard from some areas that they just always require an income calculation no matter what, and that is not what we should be doing, and we're going to have the system try to help encourage that we don't do that. I see some hands up, so I saw Paul, and then Lisa will go to you. You're still on mute, Paul, unless I answered your question. You don't have it anymore.
Oh, sorry. So the question is, if we don't collect some of this information, how would that affect the SAM? Because the SAM is determined by all of this different stuff, right? So low income, convictions, felonies, misdemeanor, all those things. And then when we go into negotiations for performance, all of that calculates in, right? So if they were made eligible by, let's say, on the youth side as homeless, right? And then you forego, let's say, putting in SNAP or doing the census or anything like that. And if those points are in the SAM, it doesn't get reported. So then our negotiation stuff is off. So how have we thought about how that's gonna flow or be affected?
Yeah, so in pre-screening, if they flag as homeless, we'll streamline them into the application without asking any kind of low income questions. However, when they get in the application, we'll still display the question around, do any of these apply to you? And then have the low income options. And they would be able to flag SNAP there. If they
Okay.
flagged SNAP, we're not going to require they do a family income calculation. If they didn't flag SNAP on any of these and they weren't, well, they would be flagged as low income because of homeless. We wouldn't ask for a low income calculation based on the conversations we've had. If we need to still do that, if there are certain areas where we feel like that should still be done, we can do that. But we were really just trying to minimize unnecessary family income calculations.
Okay. And then one quick follow-up. So when you do that, are you receiving SNAP or whatever question, is TANF going to be on there as well?
Yes, so we'll have for the low income question, and we asked it for everybody. We have all of the possible options that map to the Pearl and the SAM. We will have logic around them. So like free or reduced school like lunches, obviously adults wouldn't be asked that. That's something in school. Youth would only be asked. So we do have a little bit of logic around when some of these would display based on age. And I think we have one around SSDI would only display for somebody who had identified they have a disability. But yeah, we do ask all those. Lisa, or well, Paul, are you good before I move to Lisa?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Go ahead, Lisa.
So I just wanted for clarity. So if there's an individual that's a dislocated worker, this will not flag for us to have to put in the family income? Or what if we want to qualify them for absolutely everything? Can we bypass and still put it in?
Right now, for dislocated worker, we don't have that family income being done because they're not on the hook for a priority. If this is something you guys think that the system can always make recommendations like, hey, they meet low income, you don't need to do this. Hey, they don't meet low income or priority, you should do this. We can always allow a workaround if you feel like and there might be some situations, regardless of what the system recommends, you want to put it in. We can have a feature that like is a button that would open this up. So maybe it's not in everybody's face. We make the recommendation, but there's a button that says, I still want to move forward with the income calculator, and you click it and it would open up. We can definitely explore doing that if you think that would be a beneficial thing for the locals to have the ability to do.
Just wondering, because we like to qualify everybody for absolutely everything that they're eligible for, and then make the determination of which program that we're enrolling them in and keep it within that program. But in case, like I'll use an example, we have an adult and a dislocated worker, and we decided to enroll them in dislocated worker. And so they're in our dislocated worker program, but then we run out of OJT dollars or training dollars or whatever the case may be, and we want to enroll them into that service using other funding. We have that option to do that.
Yes.
So I was just curious if this just stops the ability to do it, or if we can kind of bypass and put it in regardless, so that we can try to qualify them for everything, so that it gives more flexibility at a funding perspective.
And
yeah,
I mean,
we can do that.
The screening tool that the customer fills out still, right? That's what we're.
No, this is the
application. I keep forgetting that too. So
this is the application. This is the full
okay.
application.
I was going to say I thought it was like the customer was like providing their income information or something, and I was like, well, even if they don't do it, we could always still, override that when the intake is being performed. And
well, that's what I was asking, if we're still be able to do that, because I mean, they might not be, automatically SNAP or TANF, but they do meet the low income guidelines as a dislocated worker. Maybe I know we have to include UI into the income calc, but maybe it was a small amount they were receiving, or they've exhausted and they haven't earned anything. So it'd be nice to have that option.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to
Okay.
speak, for all regions, all the locals, but I know with us, I kind of agree. We might be similar, Lisa, in that, depending on what time of the program year it is, if funds are getting lower or spending more funds, let's say there's a lot of large layoff events or something, we're spending a lot of 1D money, we could have people that are dislocated workers and very clearly, very upfront, quickly, okay, UI benefits, we have your layoff letter, there's eligibility can be determined very easily. If someone's been out of work for like 6-7 months and we're like, hey, their income is pretty low, we do like to see some often if we can possibly certify, just to see if they might meet the eligibility for Title 1A, because if it comes down to, like where we might have more funding and left in 1A, or the opposite, if they're 1A, but then they were also, they were laid off, we're getting low on 1A, we could serve them out of 1D. So it's nice to at least just have that option. I mean, I like what you're doing and with the screen, don't get me wrong. I like the option to have the flexibility or the latitude to be able to do both, or to do an income calculation on, like we do now, if that's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. So we can definitely do that. And I've noted that as well. Some of the things you guys have said about putting under both titles, but serving under one is something we're going to see here in a minute that we do give. We do have some features in the system that would be new to some everybody but Chicago. Chicago has a feature that we wanted to kind of replicate a similar ability to be able to do that I'm going to show you guys here in just a moment. So I have that noted for the low income. We do want the ability to be able to, regardless of recommendation, move forward with that so that we can do it in the event that we feel it's needed. We will always flag though and make the recommendation if we already know they're low income that this isn't necessarily needed to be done, but it might be something we want to explore doing. Any other questions there? Before I want to show you one last, well, maybe not one last page. I wanted to show you guys, we had talked about, so whenever, if we do certify somebody under both, so they were certified under adult dislocated worker, and this mock-up, they just haven't been certified yet. They're like missing something to finish the certification for adult. But if they were certified under both, you could have them certified and then have like this one be inactive and have the dislocated worker active to say at this point in time, we're only serving them under dislocated worker, but they're certified for both. So then you could come back in when you needed to serve them and activate that one to serve them under that branch as well. And that was some of the examples you guys had put in the chat and had talked about. So that can be done on the back end to kind of help streamline the services and activity happening, to know that it's time to dislocated worker until you're ready or need to use the adult funds to also serve them. And then the other thing we had is, I do want to pause real quick. Did anybody have any other questions or comments on this? So this is the app, just to make sure we're on the same page, the application summary review. So the customer had completed the pre-screening on their own and then the full-blown application. There will be some additional questions that a career planner has to answer to finalize the application, and we'll need to review it to make sure everything looks good and get any missing documentation uploaded before the full application is complete and can be certified. And that all happens here in this review process, where we go through and we'll show you where things are missing and a career planner intervention is needed. They'll do that and get all that with the customer. And then once everything is green and the application is good, they have the ability then, this certification section will open and they'll have the ability to certify for those programs as well. This one's only showing adult in this situation just because dislocated worker in the example has already been certified. Cassie, you have your hand raised.
Yes, good afternoon, Olivia. So The area where it says the program customer is eligible for, I think you were explaining the fact that if they fall under both programs, right?
Mhm.
You can, if you want them to be under adult, you can just click it and then it'll just show adult. Or if you want them to be under dislocated worker, you can make it active.
Mhm.
Okay. And then, but it don't have to necessarily be under both until you want it to be.
Right. So you
Okay.
might say like, oh, we're just going to do dislocated worker now, and something might happen with funds, and you can come in and open this drop down and change it to active.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're being served under both, and then maybe you need to stop dislocated worker and you can inactivate that
Yep.
one.
That's where I was going with that. Okay. All right. I just needed some clarity on that. Thank you.
Yep. And so
Also,
once,
also
go ahead.
before you continue, if that's the case, that is there a time limit where you could call and roll them in both? Because if you have a 1D person and then the money run out a year later, and that person and you activate them 1A,
Mm.
is that a problem? I don't, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think you could enroll them in 1A after a year. So would that, if you put them active, is there a time limit you have to use that 1A?
Mm.
Not that I'm aware of. They would have to be active in at least one of your,
Right.
we wouldn't
Yeah.
allow multiple inactive. But I'm not
But
aware of, and we might need to have more
I mean,
conversation.
yeah, because I mean, as far as enrolling, I'm not talking about you can activate them whenever you choose to. That's not the problem. It's going to now to enroll them into service.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm.
what I'm talking about.
Sorry, I missed a little bit of that. I had to check on something real quick. Is this about an application when information's gathered? Because I think we've
No.
talked about, okay.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I thought active meant that they were already enrolled. Like active means that there is at least one service record that they've been registered and enrolled in. So I'm sorry, I might
Yeah,
have
well, that's kind of where I'm going with that, Rory. Thanks.
so
because
there's
you can
no
fill out an
expiration on active. Active
application.
means they're open, right? Or, unless I'm misunderstanding how you're defining active.
Well, and maybe, let's clarify that, because you can fill out an application, you can be determined eligible, but you're not a participant till you receive a first service. So are they active when they've determined eligible, or are
So
they active
this
when they
isn't
receive the service?
this is an active status around a customer and their services. This is saying that they want this program to be active for the customer. So they would only see, and I know adult and dislocated worker services are the same, but they would only see services associated with dislocated worker, and every service that would be added. So say this was how they were done. Say this is how they were. When they start adding services, we're going to know on the back end that every service they're doing during this, with this being active, is a dislocated worker service, not an adult, because they've inactivated the adult program for this customer. They're serving them under their dislocated worker funds. We still are beholden to the time frame in which a customer has to be certified and enrolled in a service. That is a whole separate ball game. So if this is how it's set and you don't enroll them and you hit that expiration period, and they have no enrolling services after the set number of days, they have to go back through the application review and certification process. At the time of entering any service, that application and certification is good. So it shouldn't matter if you have, as long as you're having the dislocated worker services, you don't have any adult services, that's fine for however long, as long as you don't hit the period of exiting. If you go 90 days with no service, then they enter the exit mode and you can't put them back into an adult or dislocated worker program, regardless of status. Does that make sense? And I know there's, this is a feature that the Chicago team does, and I know Lisa had to jump off, but this is something that they really liked, especially as they start getting into the 1Ns and 1Es. So they're making sure they're putting customers into the right funds to use those up before other funds. And that's what this is attempting to do. I see a question in the chat and a hand raised. I'm going to jump to those next, but I do want to give folks a chance here to ask any questions. And a better example of this might be like an adult and a youth. So if you had certified them in both, but you're wanting to serve them under the youth funds, the adult could be inactivated, and then they're just going to see the youth services. They won't see those adult services to be able to add, and you can serve them under youth until they maybe eventually need to be served under the adult for purposes of funds or need. Then you could activate that adult and allow them to see both, or inactivate youth and just activate adult. And then those are the services that the career planner would see.
Oh, so the active and inactive is more of like what yeah, I'm sorry, I might have been on the wrong interpretation. Sorry about that, Olivia. So it means like what just as far as what's going to appear in the view, it's convenient. It'll hide things that are like unnecessary for them to see. Like you only need to see what they're actively in right now. So that's what the status, the inactive and active status means.
Yes, just
okay.
more focused on the service. They're going to see like which program services do you want them to see? We actively want them to see the youth services,
Right,
but we don't want them. We're going
currently
to inactivate the adult services for right now. They're
Okay.
still certified under both, but we're only serving them under youth.
And they could at some point, before they're exited, be registered under an adult title under 1A or something if they did need to co-enroll them in that.
Yes.
But it's just for the sake of when you log in and you go to view a customer's information, their screens like this, it just helps you identify like quickly. I see like this is what's active, this is what they're eligible for, this is the services that they're enrolled in. So it's for viewing purposes. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I got us on the wrong question because I was misinterpreting what that meant. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And I'll keep it cleaner for the career planners too, because if they put them, they sort of move them in as that they're certify them as adult and just look or adult and youth, they would see all those services. And this is just a way to kind of keep it cleaner for the career planner to not have all the unnecessary like clutter and stuff that they need to see, and streamline it to what they're actually serving them under at that time, with the ability to, change that as situations change with funding and customer needs.
So short story, if the person is active, that means they got enrolled. Yes, no?
No, you still have to add the service to enroll them. This is just saying this is active and you want to see this service set.
So active mean that this application for 1D qualified for service, correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Omar, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I have just two questions. Well, first one is who has the authority to change between active and inactive status? That's one. My second question is what if there's another third program? For example, we have one that's called Quest that can be in tandem with adults and dislocated. So it's kind of looking at like after you do the enrollment, you have the ability to add services to either a dislocated program or the Quest program based on different funding buckets.
Yep. So Quest would be listed in this table as well if that was one they had completed the application for, because that's one of the 1N or 1E ones, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yep. So it would be here. You would see it in its own line, and you could choose to do the same thing, active or inactivate it. We did have a lot of conversations around this, like regarding Quest too. So they have Quest as active and these two as inactive. Quest funds are running out. They want to move some into dislocated workers and some into adults based on funding. Then this is how that can be set up to make sure the career planners are adding the right services and not seeing everything and having to know which programs to tag them under. It'll streamline that process. Okay. The role question is something we wanted to talk to you guys about. I had two questions for you guys around. We have heard that in our previous conversations, and I do see your question in the chat, and I will definitely hop back to that. Mark answered most of it. We've had questions or comments about in some local areas, career planners are certifying. They have the ability to say, yes, everything is correct and certify. And others, like an administrator staff has to do that process. And somebody else besides a career planner has to look at it and say it's good. And then we also have this active inactive question too of what kind of roles need to be in place to allow this? Are we okay with career planners being able to activate and inactivate which programs the customer is being served under and certify? Or do we need to have another role where somebody else has to, from the local office, has to make those determinations? And we want to know a little bit more about why, if we need to elevate it to a higher level staff, why we need to do that. Like, what is the benefit of making sure that higher level staff is doing it? So I'd like to open it up a little bit to you guys to kind of tell me a little bit about your processes and what would be best for your experience.
Well, I think from our operation, we leave it to the career planner to set the active inactive status. But if that needs to be modified, maybe there should be a layer like once that that career planner certifies them, if any changes must happen in the future, it has to be through a supervisor to be able to change that inactive active status. That's a recommendation. Now,
Okay.
the practice today is the career planner can change in between as they wish.
And a career planner can certify?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the same for ours in Rockford, because we'll like Chicago, Rockford, we have tons of people that go through our programs and we put in applications and we certify. There's no way that a supervisor is going to be able to go through all of them and certify all of them. So the career planners do the certification, and then if we need to change budgets or change, funding buckets, then the career planner goes in and certifies them for that new funding bucket, and goes through it that way. But if something needs to be, like immediately uncertified because it was put in wrong, or any kind of like modifications that need to be made after the application is locked, that goes through our compliance or the system administrator to get that done.
Okay.
Another thing we do is we leave it to the career planner to set the inactive and active status. However, when it comes to services that have a monetary impact, like an ITA or an OJT, that's pretty much done by somebody, a supervisor, to enter that service so they can utilize the funds from either or based on what the budget looks like from the back end on each of those services.
Okay. All right, and I see in the comment that, yep, the career planners, when you say career specialists, you mean career planners, right? Perfect. I'd like to hear from some offices where, when we talked before, there were a few folks that said that they require a system administrator to complete the certification process. We would like to move away from that to streamline things, but wanted to know from you all, like, why there were a higher level role having to do that, and if there would be any consequences from your perspective if we open that up to allow the career planners to certify.
Well, I could say for our local area one, the career advisor does do all the certification and they're okay. I haven't implemented that type of ruling, so we don't tend to do that. I mean, it is kind of backwards if you're having somebody else review them. To me, that's taking up more time for the clients to get eligible. So you got to trust your case manager to making sure all the proper documentation is there for that certification. So that's my thought.
At our organization, we have like a review process right after somebody is certified by the career planner. Uh, some files are picked for audit, let's say internal audits,
Mhm.
through some of the files just to make sure that there's nothing missing. Because if there was something missing, we will have to reach out to that customer to get the missing documents or signatures on certain documents.
Okay.
And sometimes to be honest, sometimes we review every single file.
I'm making some notes.
Do you have a big case load of people coming in, or small total? Because if, let's say, if you have 200-300 people coming in a year, is that a lot of time consuming to try to make somebody else review it?
Well, we do have quite a good amount of customers walk in with over 200. And it's all about when to review. It doesn't have to be reviewed from the entry point, but it's let's say somebody comes in, they get certified, and they start receiving some kind of services. Once they have, let's say, a training service that needs to be open, that's when the files are actually pulled to be reviewed with all documents in order for us to open that training service and allocate which bucket to pull from based on if they have multiple programs that are eligible under.
Okay, 'cause I know we have a peer-to-peer service type where we review files and make sure everything is done properly and stuff. So that's
Mhm.
interesting, Roy. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm monitoring the chat too, so thank you for folks who are putting some content in there as well. This is all great and making sure we're moving in the right direction on how we're setting this up. I did want to jump back up to Ashanti's question. How long will the system keep uncompleted pre-screens or applications? So uncompleted pre-screens, if a customer starts a pre-screen, which is our small set of questions that we ask in that first chunk, we're still having conversations around the exact time frame. We want to be mindful of that, but we're thinking 90 days, maybe 3 months, something like that, where if they start a pre-screen and don't finish it, after that period, we will delete the pre-screen. It will go away. We will soft delete it in the system, but to the customer, if they click on that link to go back in and they haven't been in the pre-screening for X number of days, they will have to start a new pre-screen. The reason for that is the pre-screen is such a basic screening process. It's just a few questions. There's no reason for the system to hold all of that incomplete data, especially with us making the self-service process. We do expect an increase in engagement, and we don't want the system bogged down with thousands of incomplete records, especially as it relates to pre-screen. Now, when we get to the application, that's a different story. So we're still having conversation around best practice for storing that kind of data. And what we'll want to do with that. We do know that with application, if they start it but don't complete it, they'll be able to like re-review, and we'll hold some of that data for them to relook at and update and continue to move on. But we also want to be mindful, like if they had started an application 3 years ago, you know, what if any of that, there will be some data like that will never change, like your date of birth and stuff we might hold with the customer profile to help auto-populate the application. But other data, you know, is very well subject to change over the course of X number of years. So we are looking at how long we'll store some of that in the system. All data will always be soft deleted. We're never going to hard delete anything out of the system. in order to be compliant with Do It requirements. Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, I think that some of this might be a little convoluted as far as some of these OEs saying, you know, that in most cases they allow career planners to certify, but if something needs deleted, they got to go to management. Maybe some other things are allowed but aren't allowed in some areas. And you guys have probably thought this through, but maybe there's a screen for local system administrators that have a list of things that are allowable and aren't allowable, so that if someone, you know, in LWIA 7 allows something, but LWIA 20 doesn't, that system administrator could check that. And then, and I know we've talked about some of these that would give a pop-up info bubble that says you can't do this or something like that. But, you know, I hopefully it's not too convoluted to where, you know, where it's impossible for any of it, but some of it would seem like it would be difficult to differentiate when they allow one thing but not another thing. Certification and exits are pretty clear and clean that we could probably consider that, or you I shouldn't say we, but I would think we would be okay with it at the state level and local level. But for you, programming wise, hopefully maybe look into allowing a system administrator making decisions on those roles based on local policy, local process and procedures, right?
Yeah, we've talked about that a
Yep.
little bit.
Okay.
And we'll definitely get into that more as we get into more user management, and how we'll structure and set that up. We want to really have a full understanding of the system and the needs before we start really fleshing out user management, so we can accommodate things like we're talking about.
Great. Thanks.
Perfect. The last thing I have to add here is that we did flag, we wanted the ability to add a certification date. We might look at adding something like a button that said add today's date, that just streamlines in some places where the date might be consistently the current date, to just make that a little easier. But we do want to account for the ability to backdate certification dates in the event your office loses power, or you certified via paper or forgot to input it into the system, so that you can backdate that so it doesn't mess up how we add services in the system. So you're not always forced to use the current date that you're clicking the button. So that's why we have the certification date listed right here, so we can put that in. Other than that, that covers everything we wanted to walk through with you all today. We will be spending time on goals and objectives next week. We are working on trying to finish some of that stuff up this sprint that we're kicking off tomorrow. Today is the last day of our current sprint. So we do want to start getting that new AT here very soon, but we still have 2 weeks of development, and then need to make sure that's tested and looks really good for you all. But next week, we want to show you what we currently have in the system, knowing there's still some work being done, and have a bit of an open conversation around some of our dates and modification items, because we might be able to clean that up and streamline it a little bit, and want to get your guys' feedback on that. So when we meet next week, that's what we'll be talking about. We might have a couple other items pop up on the agenda based on the discovery work we're doing with the state, but we will definitely be having a session next week. With that, I'll give you guys back a few minutes of your day, as long as nobody has any questions. All right, well, thank you all so much for your time and your feedback, and just thoughtfulness on everything we looked at today.
Well, thank you too.
Bye all, have a great weekend.